and one of the best, and the New Zealand. How are you looking at it? Set it up for me.
Well, I think it's going to be very much condition dependent. I think the weather in England at this time of year can be slightly challenging. The good thing is for both sides is that their bowling lineups have been very successful in these types of conditions. I think both lineups are very good at being able to extract the most out of a wicket which has a green tinge to it. The Duke ball as well, I think, is going to suit both bowling lineups. And I'm really excited about just quite how good this test match could unfold, because I think it's sort of the batting lineups of both sides. Whilst there's a lot of class through there, there's also a lot of patience and a lot of respect for the opposition. So I think runs will be hard to come by, but both lineups probably head into this match reasonably confident that we're going to see a pretty good exhibition of their skills, I think.
And obviously it has been set up as a clash between two of the contemporary greats, Kane Williamson and Virat Kohli. Thoughts on that?
Well, both two tremendous leaders, two giants of the international game at this point in time. Two very inspirational men who lead in different ways. One's probably more outwardly aggressive, while the other one is equally as dominant, but not quite in the same expressive way. But I think both of them have led their sides brilliantly with their own performances, but also their ability to just really get the best out of those around them, and to have been able to achieve some pretty special things for both of their countries throughout the last 5 years or so, which is obviously what they've both now been in charge of their national teams for some 4 or 5 years. So, look, they're both two tremendous ambassadors of the game and two must-watch players when you get the opportunity.
And one thing is also interesting, Brendon, both have come close to winning ICC competitions. Both of these players, World Cup final, come the ICC Champions Trophy, they've come very, very close. So one will now get their hands on the inaugural one. So in that sense, huge stakes.
And ironically, it's in the one that's probably the hardest to actually qualify for, because the results are needed over a long period of time, and you have to force the games and force the situation in Test cricket to be able to garner success and garner those results. And you need a lot of things to go your way also. And both captains have pushed their teams to the success levels which they've been able to get to, and they both rightfully deserve their opportunity in this World Test Championship final. And one of them, well, maybe both of them, because the rules are obviously that it could be shared. So maybe one, at least one, maybe two could be standing aloft with the trophy and be deserved victors as captains.
Tell me something. You have played all the formats so successfully, one of the greatest white ball cricketers for sure. How do you look at the Test Championship? How important it is from the perspective of, say, Virat, Kane, India, New Zealand? How important it is from the perspective of the game, World Test Championship? How do you look at it as a former cricketer and a great of the game?
Well, look, I loved all forms of the game. I think they all have such really important attributes, and they cater to different markets. So I think we're very lucky to have 3 different forms of the game which we can take to the wider cricketing community and try and attract new fans. T20 cricket is clearly what drives now the revenue for the game globally, and predominantly based in India, obviously. One-day cricket has its place because of the World Cups in particular. There's challenges around the bilateral series moving forward and how that fits in the international calendar. But I think one thing, and it may not be around forever, but Test cricket just has such tremendous character and grace about it. It just really does challenge you in ways which the other games simply can't, because of how long the game is and how intricate the details of the game is. So, look, whilst I probably made my name, I guess, in the shorter version of the game, Test cricket was the one which I loved the most. I was very fortunate to have a long career playing Test cricket, and I had some successful days and some not so successful days, but you always knew that at come the end of a Test match, you knew that you had earned the right to be able to look back on those previous 5 days and say you gave everything you could to a game which is is full of history for those who love this game of cricket. So, look, I think there's been a few comments around the Test Championship and around the validity of how teams qualify for the championship, and the fact that some teams only play 2-match series and other teams have to play 4 or 5-match series. But I don't really buy that, because I think the countries that only get the opportunity to play, say, 2 Test matches in their series, they shouldn't really be disadvantaged by that. It's because purely the boards can't afford to play any more than that. So they're trying to seek relevance in a format which is already under increasing pressure. And I think the way that New Zealand has gone about it, the way India's gone about it, I genuinely believe right now they are the teams who do deserve the opportunity to try and challenge for the World Test Championship in that final one.
Let's get this clear. So you are actually saying that the 2 best teams on form have qualified for the final?
2 best performed teams, yeah. Some would say that New Zealand hasn't had to travel a great deal. But let's not forget that New Zealand went to the UAE and were successful when no one else can go to the UAE and be successful. They've been successful in other places on the road as well, and in Sri Lanka, for instance. And, I think at home they're an absolute formidable force. And I think now there's such a dominance from teams playing at home. And New Zealand has played India and England at home as well during that period, and Pakistan, who also have a very good bowling lineup in those conditions, and they've defeated them. So, look, I think New Zealand deserves the opportunity. I think India, everyone would agree, deserve the opportunity. They've been a standout Test side for a number of years now. I think they are the 2 best teams which deserve the right opportunity right at this point in time.
Excellent. Now, coming to, you mentioned the word conditions at the start, and a number of ex-cricketers have been on record saying the conditions might just favour New Zealand. Do you actually see it like that the 2 tests against England will give New Zealand a better sort of go-to opportunity going into the test match practice, conditions, everything else?
Look, I think there's no substitute for match practice here. I think when you're, as a cricketing team, once you're match hardened, you just find out a few different things. You smooth out some of those rough edges, and you get that general familiarity within your lineup that someone's going to get the job done and get through those tough times. Sometimes when you come off a break from playing Test cricket and you move into a high impact series, you're just not quite fully ready. The conditions we expect will swing around, but let's not forget as well that Southampton can spin. That pitch can offer some assistance to the spinners as well. So I think it's actually a fascinating place to play the Test Championship, because I think there's going to be a little bit in it for all the bowlers and all the various skill sets that they have on offer. So I'm really excited about it.
Pick your brains a little bit, because you're sitting in a position of objectivity, unlike some of us who have emotion attached when we can't talk about the Indian team. I mean, there's a lot of talk going around that when you have an Ashwin and a Jadeja in your squad, both bring batting, Jadeja's fielding, you play them both, irrespective of the conditions on offer. And I have taken that view. And you've also got 3 really good fast bowlers, whether you play Ishant, Shami and Bumrah, or you get Siraj. Would you have played, if you were coach, would you have played Ashwin and Jadeja both?
Look, that's very difficult. And this is one of the real benefits of how dominant Indian cricket has been over the last little while, is that selections are very, very tough. You've got 2 world-class players there, 2 very different players in their own rights as well, and the impact that they have on the game. You've got to probably try and find a way for both of them to fit in, but not if the conditions don't say so. So, look, I think it's a real juggling act. I think, Ravi Shastri and Virat Kohli have tended to get their selections right bang on over the last couple of years. So, they don't necessarily operate a similar kind of selection philosophy that, say, Kane Williamson and Gary Stead will, which is a bit more, shall we call it, zen, where you allow guys the opportunity to continue to play even if they're not necessarily getting.
Brendon, now take the call. I mean, you have coached Shubman Gill. All of us know he has talent. All of us have seen what he could do in Australia. How good is he? Is he right there at the moment to play the final? Rohit and Shubman will have to give us a start. At least negate the new ball. Put Shubman Gill in context for me.
I've been incredibly bullish about how good I think Shubman Gill is going to be as a player. I think he's already a very, very good cricketer. He's got something about him which is just really special. I think he's a tremendous leader of men already at a young age. He's got a very good view on the game, understand tactically the game extremely well. The hardest thing for Shubman is that because he is such a talent, so many people want to help him because they want to be aligned with him and attached to him and to be part of the Shubman Gill story, because everyone can see that he's going to go down as long as he continues the trajectory that he's on, he's going to go down as one of India's very best players if he continues to perform and continues to improve. So, I can't speak highly enough of him. The interactions that I've had with him, I find him a player who has a tremendous amount of aura about him as well, without any arrogance. I think he's got the hunger to be a really special player. He's not the finished product yet by any stretch of the imagination, but he's got a gift which not many people have, and I think we'll be talking about him. Similarly, how we spoke about Kane Williamson when he first came on the scene. I was adamant that we were going to talk about him as one of New Zealand's greatest, if not the greatest, by the end of his career. Now, maybe Shubman might not scale those lofty heights because you've had some of the game's very best, and Sachin Tendulkar in particular. But, you've got someone there who could become a very, very, very good international player over a long period of time. And I think he gives you a very good option at the top of the order in this World Test Championship.
Interesting you say that, because before he went to Australia, Shubman had a long chat with Sachin. Yuvraj convened that conversation, and the two of them really spoke about batting, more about leaving the ball. So Sachin Tendulkar too says the same thing to me about Shubman Gill. So very interesting, Brendon McCullum makes that point. Brendon, another thing, you have played the Indian team for a long, long time. You're watching Indian cricket. You're part of our system as coach now for the IPL. Is this India's best bowling crop, like the way we are talking about it, fast bowlers, spinners, balance? Is this India's best you've seen in a long, long time?
Yeah, well, I can only really talk about during the time that I've been around the international game, because obviously, when India had Javagal Srinath and Kapil Dev and the likes, there was obviously a very good bowling lineup. But I think in the last 20 years, this would have to be close to their best seam bowling lineup, and balanced out nicely with the spin options of obviously Ashwin and Jadeja as well. So I think it's probably the most rounded bowling lineup, and is probably the best bowling lineup that can travel to all conditions and to be able to and put the opposition under pressure. So yeah, I would have to agree with that.
All right, and a big breaking news now coming in.